The dust cloud rose behind the stagecoach as it disappeared down the road, leaving the young woman standing alone at the edge of the double Bar M ranch with nothing but the clothes on her back, and dirt so deeply embedded under her nails that it looked like she had been clawing her way through the earth itself. Jack Morrison was mending a section of fence near the main road when he first saw her, and something about the way she stood there, not crying, not calling out, just standing with her shoulders squared and her chin lifted despite the obvious exhaustion in her body, made him set down his tools and walk toward her. The Montana sun beat down mercilessly that July afternoon in 1878, and he could see the way her dress, threadbare and stained from travel, hung loose on her frame. But it was her hands that caught his attention as he drew closer, those work-roughened hands with dirt packed under every nail, hands that told a story of survival and determination that no words could match. "Ma'am," he said, removing his hat as he approached. "You look like you could use some water and a place to sit down." She turned to face him fully, and he found himself looking into the most striking pair of green eyes he had ever seen. They were tired, yes, but they burned with a fierce intelligence and an unmistakable strength that made his chest tighten in a way he did not quite understand. She could not have been more than 22 or 23 years old, he guessed, just a few years younger than his own 27 years. "I am looking for work," she said, her voice steady despite the way her body swayed slightly. "I can clean, cook, mend, work with animals. I am a hard worker and I do not ask for much in return. Just a place to sleep and enough food to keep going." Jack studied her for a long moment. The Double Bar M was his family's ranch, passed down to him when his father died 2 years ago. His mother had moved to town to live with his sister, unable to bear the loneliness of the ranch after his father's death. He had been managing the place mostly on his own, with the help of 2 ranch hands, Miguel and old Pete. The house had fallen into a state of disrepair, meals were haphazard affairs, and he knew he needed help. But hiring a single woman, to work on the ranch could cause talk in town. Then again, looking at the determination in her face and the exhaustion she was clearly fighting, he found he did not much care what people in town might say. "What is your name?" he asked. "Eleanor Hartley," she replied, "but most people call me Ellie." "Well, Miss Hartley, I am Jack Morrison, and this is my ranch. I could use someone to help with the house and cooking, and if you are willing to learn, there is plenty of other work too. I can offer you a room in the house, 3 meals a day and $20 a month." He saw the relief that flashed across her face before she controlled it, saw the way her shoulders relaxed just slightly. "I accept your offer, Mr. Morrison, thank you." "Come on up to the house then," he said, gesturing toward the large log and timber structure that sat about a quarter-mile up the road. "You look like you are about to fall over, and we can discuss the details after you have had something to eat and drink." As they walked together, Jack found himself stealing glances at her. She was tall for a woman, probably 5 feet 7 or 8 inches, and despite her obvious exhaustion and thin frame, he could see the strength in the way she moved. Her hair, a rich brown with hints of auburn when the sun caught it, had been pulled back into a simple braid, though strands had escaped to frame her face. There was dirt on her cheeks, dust on her dress, and those hands with their telltale dirt under the nails, but there was something undeniably beautiful about her. "Where did you come from?" he asked as they approached the house. "Colorado," she said. "My father had a small farm there. He died 3 months ago, and the bank took the property for debts I did not know he had accumulated. I have been traveling since then, looking for work, looking for a place to start over." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Jack heard the pain underneath the words. He knew something about loss and starting over. "I am sorry for your loss," he said simply. She nodded, accepting his condolence without false platitudes or unnecessary emotion. The house was indeed in need of a woman's touch. Dishes were piled in the sink, dust covered every surface, and the curtains his mother had made hung limp and faded in the windows. Jack felt a flush of embarrassment as he led Ellie inside, suddenly seeing the place through her eyes. "I know it is not much right now," he started, but she cut him off. "It is a roof and 4 walls, Mr. Morrison. That is more than I have had for the past 2 weeks. May I have that water you mentioned?" He pumped fresh water from the kitchen pump and handed her a tin cup, watching as she drank deeply, then refilled it and drank again. When she finally lowered the cup, some of the dust had been washed from her lips, and he found himself noticing the shape of her mouth, the delicate line of her jaw. "When did you last eat?" he asked. "Yesterday morning," she admitted. "A farmer's wife gave me some bread and cheese." Jack moved to the stove and began building up the fire. "Sit down before you fall down," he ordered, his voice gruff to cover the surge of protectiveness he felt. "I will make you something." "Mr. Morrison, you hired me to cook for you, not the other way around," Ellie protested, but he waved her to a chair. "You can start your duties tomorrow after you have rested. Right now, you are a guest in my house and no guest of mine goes hungry." He made her scrambled eggs and fried potatoes, simple fare but filling, and set the plate in front of her along with thick slices of bread and butter. He watched as she ate, trying not to wolf down the food despite her obvious hunger, trying to maintain some dignity even in her desperate state. That restraint, that pride even in such circumstances, told him more about her character than a dozen references could have. "There is a room at the back of the house," he said as she finished eating. "It was my sister's before she married. It has a bed and a dresser, and there is a bathing room next to it with a tub. I will heat water for you if you would like to wash up, and then you should rest. We can talk more about your duties in the morning. Mr. Morrison, I do not want to be a burden," Ellie said, but he could see how her eyes had grown heavy, how she was fighting to stay upright in the chair. "You are not a burden, Miss Hartley. You are my new employee, and I need you to be rested and well so you can start work. Now come on, let me show you the room." The room was small but clean, with a window that looked out over the eastern pasture where his cattle grazed. The bed had a simple quilt his mother had made, and though the room was spare, it was comfortable. Ellie stood in the doorway and he saw her throat work as she swallowed hard. "Thank you," she whispered. "You do not know what this means to me." "I think I have some idea," Jack said softly. "I will bring you hot water in a few minutes. There should be some of my sister's old clothes in the dresser. You are welcome to anything that fits until we can get you into town for some new things." He left her there and went to heat water on the stove, carrying bucket after bucket to fill the tub in the small bathing room. When he knocked to tell her it was ready, her voice was thick with emotion as she thanked him. He returned to the kitchen and cleaned up from their meal, trying not to think about her in the next room, washing away the dirt and dust of her journey, trying not to imagine the water sliding over her skin. What was wrong with him? He had just met this woman, and here he was thinking thoughts that were entirely inappropriate. She was his employee, nothing more. She needed help, and he needed help. It was a business arrangement, and he would do well to remember that. But as he hung up the dish towel and looked around the kitchen, he could not help but feel that something had shifted in his world. The house suddenly felt less empty, less lonely. For the first time since his mother had left, it felt like a home again. He went outside to finish his work on the fence, giving Ellie privacy and time to rest. Miguel rode up as Jack was hammering in the last post, his dark eyes curious. "I saw you walking with a woman," Miguel said without preamble. He and Jack had been friends since childhood, and Miguel never bothered with unnecessary politeness. "Who is she?" "Her name is Alina Hartley," Jack said, testing the fence post to make sure it was secure. "She needed work and we need help around the house. I hired her." Miguel let out a low whistle. "Your mother is going to have something to say about you having a young woman living in the house." "My mother does not live here anymore," Jack said firmly, "and Miss Hartley needed help. Did you want me to turn her away?" "She is pretty," Miguel asked with a grin. Jack felt heat rise in his face. "That is not relevant." "Ah, so she is very pretty then," Miguel laughed. "This will be interesting." "There is nothing interesting about it," Jack said, but Miguel just laughed harder and rode off toward the barn, leaving Jack to his thoughts. That night, Jack made dinner for himself and left a covered plate warming on the stove for Ellie in case she woke hungry. He ate alone at the big wooden table his father had built, the silence of the house pressing in on him as it always did. But tonight, the silence felt different. Tonight, he knew someone else was there, sleeping in the room at the back of the house, someone who needed safety and security, someone he found himself wanting to protect. He was up before dawn the next morning, as always, and was surprised to find Ellie already in the kitchen when he came in from checking on the horses. She had changed into one of his sister's old dresses, a simple blue cotton that was slightly too short for her height but otherwise fit well. Her hair was clean and braided again, and though she still looked tired, she looked considerably better than she had the day before. "Good morning, Mr. Morrison," she said. "I thought I should start earning my keep. What would you like for breakfast?" "Good morning, Miss Hartley. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "The bed was comfortable and the room was quiet. I think I slept 12 hours straight." "You needed it," Jack said. "For breakfast, I usually just have eggs and bacon, maybe some biscuits if I am feeling ambitious." "But do not feel like you have to start work right away. You should take a few days to recover your strength." "I would rather work if it is all the same to you," Ellie said. "I have been idle for too long, traveling and searching. It will feel good to have purpose again." Jack nodded, understanding that need for purpose all too well. "All right then. You will find everything you need in the pantry. I need to go help Miguel and Pete with the morning chores, but I will be back in about an hour for breakfast." When he returned, the kitchen smelled like heaven. Fresh biscuits sat on the table alongside scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, and gravy. Coffee steamed in cups at two-place settings, and the dirty dishes from the previous night had been washed and put away. "Miss Hartley, this looks wonderful," Jack said, genuinely impressed. "Please call me Ellie," she said as she brought the coffee pot to the table. "And you do not need to flatter me, Mr. Morrison, it is just simple food." "Call me Jack then," he said. "And I am not flattering you. I have been eating my own cooking for months, and this is a vast improvement." They sat down together, and Jack said a quick grace before they began eating. The biscuits were light and fluffy, the gravy rich and flavorful, and the eggs cooked perfectly. As they ate, Jack explained the layout of the ranch and what her duties would entail. "I mainly need help with the house," he said. "Cooking, cleaning, laundry, mending. My mother used to keep a vegetable garden out back, but it has gone to weeds since she left. If you wanted to revive it, that would be welcome, but it is not required." Miguel and Pete handle most of the ranch work, but during busy times like branding or roundup, we could use extra hands with whatever you are comfortable doing. "I grew up on a farm," Ellie said. "I know how to work with animals and crops. I'm not afraid of hard work or getting dirty." "I noticed," Jack said with a slight smile, gesturing toward her hands. Ellie looked down at her nails, which were still not entirely clean despite her bath the night before. A flush rose in her cheeks. "I spent the last 2 weeks mostly walking through back country, sleeping rough when I had to. I dug for edible roots when I could not find other food. I am not proud of how I must have looked when I arrived here." "You looked like a survivor," Jack said firmly. "There is no shame in doing what you had to do to stay alive. Those hands tell a story of strength, Ellie." "I respected that the moment I saw you." She looked up at him, surprise clear in her green eyes. "Most people look at me with pity or disdain when they see how far I have fallen." "You have not fallen," Jack said. "You have endured. There is a difference." Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that Jack felt in his chest like a physical thing. Ellie held his gaze for a long moment before looking away, but he saw the slight smile that curved her lips, saw the way her shoulders straightened a little more. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Ellie proved to be everything she had claimed and more. She tackled the house with determined efficiency, cleaning and organizing, mending curtains and linens, making the place feel like a home again. Her cooking was simple but delicious, and Jack found himself looking forward to mealtimes not just for the food but for her company. They would sit together at the table, talking about the work of the day, and slowly, carefully, they began to share pieces of their pasts. Jack told her about his father, about learning to run the ranch, about the loneliness that had settled over the place after his mother left. Ellie spoke of her father, of the small farm in Colorado, of watching him slowly drink himself into debt after her mother died when Ellie was 16. "I tried to keep the farm going," she said one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner, watching the sun set over the mountains. "I worked as hard as I could, but I did not know about the debts until after he died. The bank came and took everything. They gave me 2 days to pack what I could carry and leave." "That must have been devastating," Jack said. "It was liberating in a strange way," Ellie admitted. "I had been tied to that place for so long, trying to save something that was already lost. Once it was gone, I was free to start over, to make my own way. I was terrified, but I was also excited." "And now," Jack asked, "are you still excited?" Ellie looked at him, and in the fading light her eyes seemed to glow. "Yes," she said softly. "I feel like I am finally where I am supposed to be." Jack felt his heart skip a beat. He wanted to reach out and take her hand, wanted to tell her that he felt the same way, that having her here had changed everything. But he held back, unsure if she would welcome such attention, unsure if he had the right to offer it. Miguel noticed the change in Jack immediately. "You smile more," he observed one afternoon as they were working together to move a herd of cattle to fresh pasture. "It is good to see." "Ellie is a good cook," Jack said, trying to sound casual. "It is nice to have decent meals again." Miguel snorted. "It is not the food that makes you smile like that, my friend. You have feelings for her." "That would be inappropriate," Jack said stiffly. "She works for me." "So stop paying her and court her properly," Miguel suggested. "I have seen the way she looks at you too. There is something between you both. Anyone can see it." "It is too soon," Jack protested. "She just got here. She has been through so much. The last thing she needs is her employer making unwanted advances." "Have you considered that maybe they would not be unwanted?" Miguel asked. "Talk to her, Jack. Life is too short to let chances pass you by." But Jack could not bring himself to speak of his growing feelings. Instead, he showed them in other ways. He brought Ellie seeds for the garden and helped her clear the weeds and prepare the soil. He fixed the squeaky door on her room and replaced the worn curtains with new fabric he bought on a trip to town. He taught her to ride his gentlest horse so she could explore the ranch on her own. Ellie, for her part, seemed to bloom like one of the flowers she planted in the garden. The weight she had lost on her journey returned, filling out her face and figure. Her eyes grew brighter, her smile came more easily, and Jack often caught her singing softly as she worked. She sewed new shirts for him, mended his worn jackets, and began baking bread that was so good it made him close his eyes in pleasure at the first bite. 6 weeks after Ellie arrived, Jack's mother and sister came to visit. Margaret Morrison took one look at Ellie and then pulled her son aside. "Jack, people in town are talking," she said, worry evident in her voice. "You have a young, unmarried woman living in your house. It is not proper." "Ellie needed work and I needed help," Jack said firmly. "There is nothing improper happening, Mother." "I believe you," Margaret said. "But that does not stop people from talking. Mrs. Henderson at the general store made several pointed comments when I mentioned I was coming out to visit. You need to think about Ellie's reputation as well as your own." His sister, Catherine, was more direct. "Do you have feelings for her?" She asked when their mother was out of earshot. Jack hesitated too long before answering, and Catherine laughed. "I knew it. Jack, she is lovely, and from what I saw, she looks at you the same way. Why have you not said anything?" "It is complicated," Jack said. "It does not have to be," Catherine replied. "But Mother is right about one thing. This situation cannot continue as it is. Either you need to hire a chaperone or you need to marry the girl." The word marry echoed in Jack's head long after his mother and sister left. He had thought about it, of course. Late at night, lying in his bed, he had imagined what it would be like to have Ellie as his wife, to have the right to hold her, to kiss her, to build a life together. But the thought terrified him as much as it thrilled him. What if she did not feel the same way? What if she saw him only as her employer, her benefactor, and nothing more? The question was answered unexpectedly one afternoon in late August. Jack had been thrown from a spooked horse and landed hard on his shoulder. It was not serious, but it hurt like hell, and he was gritting his teeth against the pain as Miguel helped him back to the house. Ellie met them at the door, her face going pale when she saw Jack cradling his arm. "What happened?" "Horse threw him," Miguel explained. "I do not think anything is broken, but he hit hard." "Get him inside," Ellie ordered, all business. She helped Jack to a chair and carefully examined his shoulder, her hands gentle but thorough. "Can you move it?" Jack rotated his shoulder slowly, wincing. "Yes, it is just bruised, I think." "You are going to have a spectacular bruise tomorrow," Ellie said, but the fear in her eyes told Jack how worried she had been. "Miguel, can you help him to his room? He needs to rest." "I am fine," Jack protested. "I have work to do." "You are resting," Ellie said firmly. "Miguel and Pete can handle things for the rest of the day. Now go." Jack was too sore and too surprised by her commanding tone to argue. Miguel helped him to his room and left him there with strict orders from Ellie to stay put. 10 minutes later, Ellie knocked on the door and entered with a basin of cold water and clean cloths. "I am going to make a cold compress for that shoulder," she said. "It will help with the swelling." She sat on the edge of his bed and helped him remove his shirt, her touch careful and clinical. But as she pressed the cold cloth to his shoulder, Jack saw the way her hands trembled slightly, saw the rapid pulse beating at her throat. "Ellie," he said softly. She looked up at him and he saw tears glistening in her eyes. "You could have been killed," she whispered. "When I saw Miguel helping you toward the house, I thought, I was so afraid." "I am all right," Jack said. He reached up with his good arm and cupped her cheek, feeling the softness of her skin under his palm. "Ellie, I am all right." A tear spilled over and ran down her cheek. Without thinking, acting purely on instinct and desire, Jack leaned forward and kissed it away. He felt her sharp intake of breath, felt her go very still. For a moment, he thought he had made a terrible mistake. Then her hand came up to cover his where it rested on her cheek, and she turned her face into his palm, pressing a kiss there. "Jack," she breathed. He drew back just enough to look into her eyes. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "I have wanted to tell you that you are the most remarkable woman I have ever met, that having you here has changed everything for me, that I think about you every moment of every day." "I think about you too," Ellie confessed. "I tell myself I should not, that you are my employer and I should be grateful for what you have already given me without wanting more, but I cannot help it. When I saw you hurt, I realized that I have come to care for you far more than I should." "There is no should about it," Jack said. He leaned forward again, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But she did not pull away. Instead, she met him halfway, her lips touching his in a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of all the longing they had both been holding back. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Jack rested his forehead against hers. "I want to court you properly," he said. "I know this is not conventional, given that you work for me, but I do not care about convention. I care about you, Ellie. I want to see where this can go." "I want that too," Ellie said. "But Jack, people will talk. Your mother already mentioned it when she visited." "Let them talk," Jack said. "I am a grown man with my own ranch. I can court whoever I want to court, and I want to court you." Ellie smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Then I accept." Their courtship was unconventional by any standard, conducted as it was under the same roof, but it was also wonderfully natural. They continued their routine of working together during the day, but now Jack would seek her out for walks after dinner, would hold her hand as they sat on the porch, would steal kisses in the garden when Miguel and Pete were not around. Jack took her into town on Saturday afternoons, making their relationship known despite the raised eyebrows and whispered comments. He bought her new dresses, insisted she pick out material for more, and introduced her to everyone they met as the woman he was courting. Some people were kind, welcoming Ellie warmly. Others were less so, making their disapproval clear. But Ellie held her head high, and Jack stayed protectively at her side, making it clear that anyone who wanted to insult her would have to go through him first. The garden Ellie had planted flourished under her care, producing tomatoes and beans and squash in abundance. She preserved what they could not eat, filling the pantry with jars of vegetables and fruits for the winter ahead. She also took an interest in the ranch itself, asking questions about the cattle and the horses, learning about the business side of ranching. Jack found himself discussing his plans and dreams with her, valuing her opinion and often being surprised by her insights. "You should think about diversifying," she suggested one evening as they reviewed the ranch accounts together. "Right now, you rely entirely on cattle, but what if there is a bad year for beef prices? You have enough land to grow hay and grain. You could sell some of it and use the rest to feed your own stock. That would give you another source of income and reduce your costs." Jack studied the numbers, seeing the wisdom in her suggestion. "That is a good idea. I would need to invest in equipment, but long-term it makes sense." "You are already thinking like a partner," he said, then hesitated. The word partner hung in the air between them, full of meaning. Ellie met his eyes. "Am I?" she asked softly. "I hope so," Jack said. He reached across the table and took her hand. "Ellie, I know it has only been 3 months, but I cannot imagine my life without you in it. You have brought light and warmth back to this house, back to my life. You have made me happier than I ever thought I could be. You have given me a home when I had nowhere else to go," Ellie said. "You have treated me with respect and kindness. You have seen me as more than a poor vagrant looking for handouts. You have seen my strength, Jack, and that means more to me than I can say." "I want to marry you," Jack said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I know it is too soon, and I know people will say you are only accepting because you feel obligated or because you need security. But I do not care what people say. I love you, Ellie Hartley. I want you to be my wife, my partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me?" Ellie's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you, and it is not too soon and I do not feel obligated. I love you too, Jack Morrison. I think I started falling in love with you the moment you offered me water and kindness when I had nothing to give in return." Jack stood and pulled her up into his arms, kissing her with all the love and passion he felt. She kissed him back with equal fervor, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body pressing close to his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jack rested his forehead against hers. "I do not have a ring yet," he said. "I will get you a proper one." "I do not need a fancy ring," Ellie said. "I just need you." They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in town. Jack's mother and sister came, and though Margaret had initial reservations, she warmed to Ellie quickly, seeing how happy her son was. Miguel stood up as Jack's best man, and Catherine stood with Ellie. Old Pete sat in the front pew, grinning like a fool. Some of the townspeople came to the wedding, those who had been kind and welcoming to Ellie. Others stayed away, making their disapproval known through their absence. But Jack and Ellie did not care. As they stood before the preacher and exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other for all their days, the rest of the world faded away. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife and told Jack he could kiss his bride, Jack cupped Ellie's face in his hands and kissed her with all the love in his heart. The small congregation applauded, and Ellie laughed against his lips, the sound pure and joyful. They held a small reception at the ranch, with Margaret and Catherine providing food and Pete playing his fiddle for dancing. As the sun set and the stars came out, Jack led his new wife in a waltz across the porch, holding her close and marveling at how his life had changed. "Happy," he murmured against her hair. "More than I ever dreamed possible," Ellie replied. 3 months ago, I was standing at the edge of your ranch with nothing but dirt under my nails and no hope for the future. Now I have a home, a husband who loves me, and a life full of possibilities." "You had hope," Jack corrected gently. "You had strength and determination and courage. Those are the things I saw in you from the very beginning. Those are the things that made me fall in love with you." Their first night as husband and wife was tender and sweet, full of whispered endearments and gentle explorations. Jack was careful with Ellie, mindful that this was new for her, and she responded to his patience with trust and growing confidence. They came together with love and desire, creating a bond that went beyond the physical to something deeper and more profound. Afterward, lying tangled together in Jack's bed, now their bed, Ellie traced patterns on his chest. "I never thought I would have this," she said quietly. "After my father died and I lost the farm, I thought I would spend my life alone, working whatever jobs I could find, never having a real home again. You have given me everything, Jack." "You have given me just as much," Jack said, tilting her face up so he could look into her eyes. "I was so lonely before you came. I was going through the motions of living but not really living at all. You brought me back to life, Ellie. You showed me what it means to have a true partner, someone to share everything with." As autumn arrived and the leaves on the cottonwoods turned gold, Jack and Ellie settled into married life. Ellie took over more of the ranch management, working alongside Jack to make decisions and plan for the future. They bought the equipment she had suggested for growing hay and grain, and Jack taught her to drive the wagon so she could help with deliveries. The townspeople gradually came to accept their marriage, won over by Ellie's friendly demeanor and hard work. She joined the ladies' auxiliary at the church and became known for her generosity, often providing food for families in need. Jack watched with pride as his wife made a place for herself in the community, earning respect through her actions. Winter came hard that year, with heavy snows and bitter cold. Jack and Ellie spent long evenings by the fire, planning for the spring and the year ahead. They talked about expanding the herd, about adding more fields for crops, about eventually building a bigger house when they needed more room. "When we need more room," Ellie repeated, raising an eyebrow. "What would we need more room for?" Jack grinned. "Well, I was hoping we might have children someday, unless you do not want them." "I want them," Ellie said softly. "I want to fill this house with children and love and laughter." "I want to build a family with you, Jack." "Good," Jack said, pulling her into his lap. "Because I want that too. I want to see you with our babies in your arms. I want to teach our sons to ride and rope. I want to teach our daughters to be strong and brave like their mother." "Daughters first." Ellie teased. "Sons, daughters, it does not matter to me," Jack said, "as long as they are healthy and they have you as their mother." Spring brought new life to the ranch in more ways than one. The cattle bore healthy calves, the fields they had planted began to sprout, and Ellie discovered she was pregnant. She told Jack one morning in early April, watching his face carefully for his reaction. He froze for a moment, processing the news, and then a grin spread across his face so wide it looked like it might split. "Truly?" he asked. "Truly," Ellie confirmed. "I am about 2 months along, I think. The baby should come in late October or early November." Jack let out a whoop of joy and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around before carefully setting her back down. "We are going to have a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "Ellie, we are going to be parents. Are you happy?" She asked, though she could see the answer written all over his face. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Jack said. He knelt down and pressed a kiss to her still flat stomach. "Hello, little one, I am your papa and I already love you more than you can imagine." Ellie ran her fingers through his hair, tears of joy streaming down her face. A year ago she had been alone and desperate, with nothing to her name and nowhere to go. Now she had a husband who adored her, a home she loved, and a baby on the way. The transformation seemed almost too good to be true. Jack was protective of Ellie throughout her pregnancy, trying to prevent her from doing any heavy work. Ellie, however, was having none of it. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she informed him when he tried to stop her from tending the garden. "Women have been having babies and working through their pregnancies since the beginning of time. I will be fine." "But what if something happens?" Jack worried. "Then something happens," Ellie said practically. "But wrapping me in cotton wool will not prevent it. Let me work, Jack. Let me do what I need to do. I will tell you if I need to rest." Jack reluctantly agreed, though he hovered anxiously whenever Ellie did anything more strenuous than sitting with her sewing. Miguel teased him mercilessly about it, calling him a mother hen, but Jack did not care. Ellie and the baby were the most important things in his world, and he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. As Ellie's belly grew round with their child, Jack found himself falling even more deeply in love with her. There was something radiant about her in pregnancy, something that took his breath away. He loved to put his hand on her stomach and feel the baby move, loved to imagine what their child would look like, loved to dream about the future they were building together. Summer was busy with ranch work, and despite her pregnancy, Ellie insisted on helping where she could. She drove the wagon for deliveries, kept the books, and continued to manage the house and garden. Jack hired a young woman from town, Mary, to help with the heavier housework, which eased some of his worry. In late August, trouble arrived in the form of Raymond Hartley, Ellie's uncle. He showed up at the ranch unannounced, a tall, thin man with cold eyes and a calculating expression. Jack immediately disliked him. "I heard my niece was living out here," Raymond said after introducing himself. "Thought I should come check on her, seeing as she is family." "I am fine, Uncle Raymond," Ellie said, her voice cool. "As you can see, I am married and expecting a child." Raymond's eyes traveled over her rounded belly with distaste. "Yes, I can see that. Married quite quickly, did you not? What was it, 4 months after your father died?" "What I did and when I did it is none of your concern," Ellie said firmly. "You never cared about me or my father when he was alive. Why are you here now?" "I have been going through your father's papers," Raymond said. "There are some items that should have been in the estate when it was settled. A pocket watch that belonged to my father, some jewelry that was my mother's. I believe you may have taken them when you left." "I took nothing but my own belongings," Ellie said, her face flushing with anger. "Everything else went to the bank to settle the debts." "Are you certain about that?" Raymond asked, his voice oily. "Because I could cause quite a problem for you if I reported to the authorities that you stole from the estate, especially now, with a baby coming. Would be a shame for your child to have a mother in prison." Jack stepped forward, placing himself between Raymond and Ellie. "I think you need to leave," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "My wife has told you she took nothing that did not belong to her. If you have proof otherwise, show it. If not, get off my property." Raymond smirked. "Of course, perhaps we could settle this matter privately. Say $500 and I will forget all about the missing items." "You are trying to extort money from us," Jack said flatly. "That is not going to happen. Now leave before I throw you off the property myself." "You will regret this," Raymond threatened. "I have friends in Colorado who will be very interested to hear about the stolen property." "Then let them come," Jack said. "My wife has done nothing wrong and I will defend her against any false accusations. Now get out." Raymond left, but not before shooting Ellie a look of pure malice. When he was gone, Ellie collapsed into a chair, her face pale. "He is lying," she said, her voice shaking. "Jack, I swear to you I took nothing that was not mine." "I believe you," Jack said immediately, kneeling beside her chair and taking her hands. "I know you, Ellie, you would never steal. He is just looking for an easy payday." "But what if he goes to the authorities anyway?" Ellie asked, fear in her eyes. "What if they believe him?" "Then we will fight it," Jack said firmly. "I will hire the best lawyer in Montana if I have to. No one is going to take you away from me or our baby." "I promise you that." Jack was true to his word. He rode into town the next day and consulted with a lawyer, explaining the situation. The lawyer assured him that, without proof, Raymond had no case, but he suggested documenting everything just in case. Over the next few weeks, Jack made inquiries through his contacts, finding out what he could about Raymond Hartley. What he learned was not reassuring. Raymond was known as a con man and a fraud, someone who made his living by threatening and extorting money from vulnerable people. He had been run out of 2 different towns for his schemes. Armed with this information, Jack wrote to the authorities in Colorado, explaining the situation and providing evidence of Raymond's fraudulent activities. The response he received was heartening. The Colorado authorities had no record of any complaint about stolen property from the Hartley estate, and they were very interested in Raymond's current whereabouts, given that he was wanted for fraud in another county. When Jack showed Ellie the letter, she cried with relief. "It is over then." "It is over," Jack confirmed. "If Raymond shows his face around here again, I will have him arrested. You are safe, Ellie. Our baby is safe." The incident with Raymond seemed to bring them even closer together. Ellie had been terrified of losing everything again, and Jack had proven without hesitation that he would stand by her no matter what. The trust and love between them deepened, becoming something unshakable. As fall arrived and Ellie's due date approached, Jack grew increasingly nervous. He had helped deliver countless calves and foals, but the thought of Ellie going through childbirth terrified him. What if something went wrong? What if he lost her? Ellie, sensing his fear, took his face in her hands one evening. "I am going to be fine," she said firmly. "Women do this every day." "I am strong and our baby is strong. Have faith, Jack." "I just cannot bear the thought of losing you," Jack admitted. "You are everything to me, Ellie." "And you are everything to me," Ellie said, "but you are not going to lose me. We are going to have this baby together, and then we are going to raise him or her together, and we are going to grow old together. That is the future I see, and I am not going to let anything change it." Her confidence bolstered his courage, and when her labor began on a cold November night, Jack was ready. He had made sure the doctor from town was staying at the ranch, just in case, and Margaret had come to help as well. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Jack paced outside the bedroom, going half mad with worry every time he heard Ellie cry out. Miguel and Pete tried to distract him, but nothing could ease his anxiety. Finally, as the sun was setting on the second day, he heard a new sound, a baby's cry, strong and lusty. Jack froze, his heart pounding, waiting for word. After what felt like an eternity, Margaret opened the door, tears streaming down her face. "You have a son," she said, "and Ellie is fine." "She is tired but fine. Come meet your boy." Jack entered the room on shaky legs. Ellie was propped up in bed, pale and exhausted but smiling. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked up as Jack approached, her eyes shining with love and exhaustion. "Come meet our son," she said softly. Jack sat on the edge of the bed and looked down at the baby in Ellie's arms. He had a shock of dark hair and a red, scrunched-up face, and he was the most beautiful thing Jack had ever seen, aside from his wife. "He is perfect," Jack whispered. "Ellie, you are amazing. You did this." "We did this," Ellie corrected. She carefully transferred the baby into Jack's arms. "Here, hold your son." Jack cradled the tiny infant carefully, overwhelmed by the rush of love he felt. This was his child, his and Ellie's, a perfect combination of their love. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "I am your papa. I have been waiting to meet you." The baby opened his eyes, dark blue like all newborns, and seemed to look right at Jack. In that moment, Jack felt his world shift and expand. Everything he had thought important before paled in comparison to this tiny life he now held. "What should we name him?" Ellie asked. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had not settled on anything definite. Now, looking at his son, Jack knew exactly what felt right. "I would like to name him Thomas after my father," Jack said, "if that is all right with you." "Thomas Morrison," Ellie said, trying out the name. "I like it. Thomas Jack Morrison." "Thomas Jack," Jack repeated, smiling. "Welcome to the world, Tommy." The weeks after Tommy's birth were challenging but wonderful. Ellie recovered quickly, though she was exhausted from the broken sleep that came with a newborn. Jack helped as much as he could, walking the floor with Tommy when he was fussy, changing his diapers and marveling at every tiny change in his son. Margaret stayed for 2 weeks to help, and by the time she left, Ellie had settled into a routine. Mary continued to help with the housework, which allowed Ellie to focus on caring for Tommy. Winter closed in, and the Morrison family spent cozy evenings by the fire, with Tommy sleeping in a cradle Jack had built himself. Ellie would nurse the baby while Jack read aloud from the newspaper or a book, and they would talk about their plans for the ranch and their hopes for Tommy's future. "I want him to have opportunities," Ellie said one evening. "I want him to have the chance to go to school to learn, to be whatever he wants to be." "He will," Jack promised. "We will make sure of it, but I also want to teach him about the ranch, about hard work and taking care of the land. Those are important lessons too." "They are," Ellie agreed. "We will teach him both. We will teach him to work hard but also to dream big. We will teach him to be strong but also kind. We will teach him to be a good man like his father." Jack felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You always know exactly what to say." "It is the truth," Ellie said simply. "You are a good man, Jack Morrison, the best I have ever known. Our son is lucky to have you as his father." Spring came again, bringing with it new life and new challenges. The ranch continued to prosper under Jack and Ellie's joint management. The hay and grain crops they had planted did well, providing extra income as Ellie had predicted. They were able to expand their herd and hire another ranch hand to help with the increased workload. Tommy grew rapidly, becoming a chubby, happy baby who smiled at everyone and everything. He had Jack's dark hair and Ellie's green eyes, and he was doted on by everyone who met him. Miguel, who had initially been uncertain about babies, turned out to be wonderful with Tommy. He would ride with the baby in front of him on his saddle, singing Spanish songs and making Tommy laugh with delight. Old Pete carved toys for the boy, and Mary knitted him sweaters and blankets. As Tommy's first birthday approached, Jack and Ellie reflected on how much their lives had changed in just 2 years. "2 years ago, you arrived at this ranch with nothing," Jack said as they sat on the porch one evening, watching Tommy toddle around the yard. "Look at what we have built together." "I arrived with nothing material," Ellie corrected. "But I had hope and determination. And I had the incredible fortune to find a man who saw past my circumstances to who I really was. You saw my strength, Jack, when I could barely see it myself." "You made it easy to see," Jack said. "You were the strongest person I had ever met, standing there covered in dust and dirt but refusing to give up. I knew right then that you were someone special." "And you were kind when you did not have to be," Ellie said. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. You gave me a home, and then you gave me your heart. You gave me everything, Jack." "We gave each other everything," Jack said, pulling her close. "That is what love is supposed to be, giving and receiving equally, building something together that is stronger than what either of us could have alone." As the years passed, the Morrison family continued to grow and thrive. Ellie became pregnant again when Tommy was 2, and this time she gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah Catherine after Jack's sister. Sarah was a tiny, delicate baby with wisps of auburn hair and a determined personality that reminded Jack of Ellie. 2 years after Sarah came another son, William, who they called Will. Will was quieter than his older siblings, more thoughtful and observant, but he had a mischievous streak that kept his parents on their toes. The ranch grew along with the family. Jack and Ellie built the bigger house they had dreamed of, a spacious 2-story structure with enough room for their growing brood and any future children. They added more land to their holdings, expanded their crops, and became known throughout Montana for the quality of their cattle and horses. Through it all, Jack and Ellie remained partners in every sense of the word. They made decisions together, supported each other through challenges, and celebrated successes side by side. Their love deepened and matured, becoming the foundation upon which their entire family was built. The townspeople who had once gossiped about the impropriety of their courtship now held them up as an example of a strong marriage. Ellie was respected as a shrewd businesswoman and a devoted mother. Jack was admired for his fairness as an employer and his dedication to his family. When Tommy was 10, Sarah was 8, and Will was 6. Ellie gave birth to one more child, a daughter they named Margaret Rose, after Jack's mother. Maggie, as they called her, completed their family, and Jack could not imagine his life being any more perfect. One evening, when the children were all finally in bed after a long day of chasing chickens and playing in the creek, Jack and Ellie sat on the porch of their home, looking out over the ranch they had built together. "Do you ever think about that day?" Jack asked. "The day you arrived here?" "I think about it often," Ellie admitted. "I think about how desperate and afraid I was, how I had walked for days not knowing where I was going or what I would find. And then I saw you and something just clicked into place. I knew somehow that I was where I was supposed to be." "I felt the same way," Jack said. "I looked at you standing there and I saw a survivor. I saw strength and courage and determination, and I knew I wanted to know you, to understand what had brought you to my doorstep." "You saw more in me than I saw in myself at that moment," Ellie said softly. "You gave me the chance to prove what I could do, to show my strength, and in doing that, you gave me my life back. You gave me everything I have now." "You earned everything you have," Jack corrected. "I just gave you the opportunity. You did the hard work. You built this life, Ellie. You and me together." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling down for the night, the cattle lowing in the distance, the horses moving in the corral, the wind rustling through the cottonwoods. It was the sound of home, the sound of the life they had built. "I love you," Ellie said, reaching for Jack's hand. "I love you more than I ever thought it was possible to love another person. You are my partner, my best friend, my greatest adventure." "And you are mine," Jack said, bringing her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. "From the moment I saw those dirt-stained hands and that determined look in your eyes, I was lost. I just did not know it yet." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Jack pulled Ellie close, and they sat together in the peace and contentment of their shared life. They had both come from places of loss and loneliness, but they had found each other, and in finding each other, they had found home. The years continued to roll by, bringing the joys and challenges that all families face. Tommy grew into a fine young man, learning the ranch business from his parents and showing an aptitude for it that made Jack proud. Sarah became a skilled horsewoman and developed a passion for teaching, eventually starting a small school on the ranch for the children of the workers. Will discovered a talent for working with wood and built beautiful furniture that Ellie treasured. Maggie, the baby, grew into a spirited young woman with her mother's determination and her father's kind heart. Jack and Ellie watched their children grow with pride and joy, knowing that they had succeeded in their goal of raising good, strong, capable people. They taught them the value of hard work, the importance of kindness, and the power of love and partnership. When Jack turned 50, Ellie threw him a party at the ranch, inviting friends and family from all over Montana. As Jack looked around at the crowd of people celebrating with him, at his children and now grandchildren, at the ranch that had become so much more than he ever dreamed, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Miguel, now gray-haired but still riding and working, raised a toast. To Jack Morrison, the best friend and boss a man could ask for, and to Ellie, the woman who changed everything. To Jack and Ellie, the crowd choroed, raising their glasses. Later that evening, after the guests had left and the children had taken the grandchildren home to bed, Jack and Ellie walked hand in hand down to the spot where he had first seen her all those years ago. The place where she had stood with nothing but dirt under her nails and hope in her heart. "Do you remember?" Jack asked, though he knew she did. "Every detail," Ellie said. "I remember thinking I could not walk another step. I remember seeing the dust cloud from the stagecoach disappearing and feeling completely alone. And then I remember seeing you, walking toward me with such kindness in your eyes. I remember thinking you were the bravest person I had ever seen," Jack said. "You had nothing and you had been through so much, but you stood there with your shoulders back and your chin up, ready to keep fighting. That is when I fell in love with you, I think. Right at that very moment. I fell in love with you when you offered me water without asking questions," Ellie said. "When you treated me like a person deserving of respect and dignity, even though I looked like a vagrant. You saw my strength, Jack. You saw the person I really was underneath the dirt and the exhaustion, and you gave me the chance to be that person again. You gave me just as much, Jack insisted. You brought light and love back into my life. You made this ranch a home. You gave me our beautiful children. You have been my partner in every way, making every decision with me, sharing every burden, celebrating every joy. I could not have done any of this without you. They stood together in the gathering darkness, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life together that exceeded anything either of them could have imagined. If I had to do it all over again, Ellie said, if I had to walk every hard mile, sleep under every cold sky, go hungry for every meal, I would do it. Because it all led me here to you, to this life we have built. And I would walk to the ends of the earth to find you if I had to, Jack said. You are my heart, Ellie Morrison. You always have been, from that very first moment. As they walked back to the house together, their fingers intertwined, Jack thought about how much had changed since that July day in 1878 when a tired young woman with dirt under her nails had walked into his life. He had been alone then, going through the motions of living but not really alive, and she had been lost, searching for something she could not name. They had found each other, and in finding each other, they had found themselves. They had built not just a ranch but a legacy, not just a family but a dynasty that would continue for generations. And it all started with a simple act of kindness, a willingness to see the strength in someone whose society had written off, a decision to take a chance on love even when it was unconventional and uncertain. Now, as they climbed the steps to their home, the home they had built together, filled with the memories of their love and the laughter of their children, Jack knew that every moment had been worth it. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt had led them to this place of contentment and joy. Inside the house, they prepared for bed in the comfortable rhythm of a couple who had been together for decades. They talked about the day, about the party, about their grandchildren who were growing so fast. They made plans for the coming week, discussing ranch business and family matters with the easy partnership that had always defined their relationship. As they lay in bed that night, Ellie's head resting on Jack's shoulder, his arm around her waist, Jack whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" Ellie asked sleepily. "For arriving on my ranch with dirt under your nails," Jack said. "For being strong enough to survive and brave enough to hope. For seeing something in me worth loving. For building this life with me. For everything, Ellie. Thank you for everything." Ellie tilted her face up to kiss him softly. "Thank you for seeing my strength when I could barely feel it. Thank you for giving me a chance when no one else would. Thank you for loving me through everything. Thank you for being my partner, my love, my home." They fell asleep in each other's arms the way they had for decades, the way they would for many years to come. Outside, the Montana wind whispered through the cottonwoods, carrying with it the sounds of the ranch, the cattle, the horses, the life they had built together from nothing but hope and determination and love. The story of Jack and Ellie Morrison became something of a legend in Montana. People told their children and grandchildren about the woman who arrived with nothing and the cowboy who saw her strength, about how they built one of the most successful ranches in the territory through hard work and partnership, about the love that had sustained them through every challenge. Their children carried on their legacy, passing down not just the ranch but the values their parents had taught them. The importance of seeing the strength in people, even when they were at their lowest. The power of kindness and second chances. The beauty of partnership and shared dreams. The enduring nature of true love. Years later, when Jack and Ellie were old and gray, sitting on their porch watching their great-grandchildren play in the yard, they would still hold hands, still share secret smiles, still remember that moment when their lives had intersected and changed forever. "Do you have any regrets?" Ellie asked Jack one afternoon, the question prompted by nothing except the philosophical mood that sometimes comes with age. Jack thought about it carefully. He thought about the challenges they had faced, the children they had buried young when sickness struck, the hard times when money was tight and the future uncertain, the moments of fear and doubt and worry that had marked their journey together. "Not a single one," he said finally. "Every moment, good and bad, has led us here, and here is pretty perfect." "It is," Ellie agreed, squeezing his hand. "It truly is." As the sun set over the Double Bar M Ranch that evening, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple, Jack and Ellie sat together in the peaceful contentment of a life well lived. They had started with nothing but dirt under her nails and hope in their hearts, and they had built an empire of love, family, and success. Their story was one of strength recognized and rewarded, of kindness repaid 1,000-fold, of love that endured through every trial and emerged stronger on the other side. It was a story that would be told for generations, inspiring others to take chances on love, to see the strength in people others might overlook, to build lives of meaning and purpose together. But more than that, it was their story, the story of Jack and Ellie Morrison, two people who found each other when they needed it most and created something beautiful together. And as they sat together watching another day end on the ranch they had built, surrounded by the evidence of their love in the form of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they knew that they had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. The dirt that had once been embedded under Ellie's nails was long gone, washed away by years of good living and happy memories. But the strength that dirt had represented, the determination and courage and refusal to give up, that remained as strong as ever. It was the foundation upon which they had built everything, the bedrock of their love and their life together. And Jack, the cowboy who had seen that strength when others saw only a desperate vagrant, had been rewarded with a love and a partnership that most people only dreamed of. He had taken a chance on a woman with nothing to offer but her willingness to work hard and her determination to survive, and she had given him everything that truly mattered in life. As night fell and the stars emerged one by one in the vast Montana sky, Jack and Ellie went inside their home together, ready for whatever the next day might bring, confident in the knowledge that as long as they faced it together, they could handle anything. Their love story, which had begun so improbably on a dusty road in July of 1878, had become the stuff of legend. But for Jack and Ellie, it was simply their life, the beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary life they had built together from nothing but hope, determination, and a cowboy's willingness to see the strength in a woman who arrived on his ranch with nothing but dirt under her nails. And as they climbed into bed that night, as they had every night for over 40 years, they thanked the universe for bringing them together, for giving them each other, for allowing them to build this life. Then, with hearts full of gratitude and love, they fell asleep in each other's arms, ready to wake up tomorrow and do it all again together, the way they had always done, the way they would always do for as long as they both lived. The seasons continued their eternal dance, and Jack and Ellie Morrison continued theirs as well, partners in life and love until the very end. And when that end came, many years later, they went together, holding hands just as they had throughout their life, embarking on their final adventure side by side, the cowboy and the woman who had arrived on his ranch with nothing but dirt under her nails, united in death as they had been in life, forever and always. Their children buried them on a hillside overlooking the ranch, under the Montana sky they had both loved so much. The headstone was simple but perfect, bearing their names and the dates of their birth and death, along with a single line that captured the essence of their love story. She arrived with nothing but dirt under her nails. He saw her strength. Together they built an empire of love. And the Double Bar M Ranch, the home they had built together, continued on, passed down through the generations, a living testament to what two people can accomplish when they find each other, see each other truly, and commit to building a life together based on love, respect, and partnership. The story of Jack and Ellie Morrison lived on too, told and retold around dinner tables and campfires, a reminder that strength comes in many forms, that love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances, and that sometimes all it takes is one person to see your worth when you can barely see it yourself. One person to offer kindness when you desperately need it. One person to take a chance on you when everyone else has passed you by. One person to build a life with, to dream with, to love with your whole heart. That was the gift Jack and Ellie had given each other, and the legacy they left behind. A legacy of love, strength, partnership, and the enduring belief that every person deserves to be seen for who they truly are, not just what their circumstances might suggest. It was a legacy that lived on in their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and all the generations that would follow, a reminder of where they came from and the love story that had started it all. The dirt under Ellie's nails had long since washed away, but the strength it represented, the determination and courage that had brought her to Jack's doorstep that fateful July day, that lived on forever in the legacy they created together. And Jack's willingness to see that strength, to recognize the worth of a person society had dismissed, that lived on too. A reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures come in the most unexpected packages, and that love, true love, sees beyond circumstances to the heart of a person. Their story was complete, their circle closed, their lives lived fully and well. From that first meeting to their final breath, they had been partners, lovers, best friends, and soulmates. They had faced every challenge together, celebrated every joy together, built something lasting and beautiful together. And in the end, that was all that really mattered. Not the ranch, not the money, not the success, but the love they had shared, the life they had built, the family they had raised, and the legacy they had left behind. It was a story of hope found in desperation, of strength recognized and rewarded, of kindness repaid 1,000-fold, of love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. It was the story of a woman who arrived on a ranch with nothing but dirt under her nails and a cowboy who saw her strength, and the beautiful life they built together from that simple beginning. And it was a story that would be told for generations to come, inspiring others to take chances, to see the strength in people, to believe in love, and to never underestimate the power of kindness, partnership, and unwavering devotion. It was, in short, a story of the American West, of hard work and determination, of building something from nothing, but most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple, timeless and true. The end.